Well, hello, Digifest. I think I have the greatest startup marketing job in the world because I get to evangelize an entirely new visual medium that has caught the interest of photographers, videographers, digital marketers, and advertisers around the world. Just curious, who is hearing the word Cinemagraph for the first time here at this conference? So most of you have heard the word. That's great. So what I'm going to do over the next half an hour is give you a little bit of a history lesson on where this medium came from, tell you a little bit about Flixel and some of our challenges over the last 4.5 years as we try and create products to create cinemagraphs as well as evangelize the medium. And then I'm going to show you some pretty cool use cases that we are seeing in marketing and advertising where cinemagraphs are really being put to work in all kinds of fun new ways. So where's my slides? All right, so let's rewind the clock about 5 years. It's Fashion Week in New York, and images like this start to appear on the internet. These are animated GIFs, and they're the work of a husband and wife photography duo by the name of Jamie Beck and Kevin Berg, or as they're known in photography circles, Beck and Berg. And Beck and Berg have an incredible roster of some of the world's top fashion and luxury brands that they do photography for. And around 2011, they started experimenting with the idea of shooting video at the same time as they do still photography. And Kevin Berg, being the techie of the two, they were husband and wife, Kevin would take the video into traditional photo editing and video editing applications like Adobe Photoshop and Adobe After Effects. And frame by painful frame, over the course of hours, or in some cases, several days, they would create one of these moving thingies, which had yet to be named. And not surprisingly, these got a lot of attention. Because they were GIFs, they were easily shared, copied, and promoted across the internet. And sites like CNN.com, Time.com wrote stories about this new visual format. And it was also about, at the same time, that they decided it was time to give the medium a name because they got tired of these brands saying, hey, Jamie, can you make us some of those moving things? So they coined the term cinemagraph, and if you Google the word, this is what you'll see as the Wikipedia result. And essentially, I describe a cinemagraph as a beautiful meld between photography and video because it combines the two. And it's enabled today because we have these amazing cameras that are in our phones, as well as DSLRs that can shoot 4K and 6K video, and then a new generation of easy-to-use software apps that we've created that make cinemagraphs fun and easy to use. It's interesting, we've edited the wiki page a few times to add the fact that we've developed apps for cinemagraphs. There's also the fact that we own the trademark now on the word cinemagraph, but somebody keeps taking it off the wiki page, so we're not quite sure who's doing that. So around the same time, our co-founder, Phil LeBlanc, who was studying film and photography and other arts-related subjects, saw these first cinemagraphs and was intrigued, like everybody else. And he wanted to create them. So he explored what was involved in creating these images, and he realized just how difficult they were to do. And that planted a seed, and Flixel was born. Now, he partnered with his friend Mark Holmza. The two of them aren't techies, so they managed somehow to convince a couple of investors here in Toronto to give them some seed money. They took that seed money, and they hired a couple of developers, and a few months later, the first Flixel app was introduced. I'm not going to talk a lot about our product, just one slide here. So what we've done is we've made it very, very easy to create a cinemagraph. You just put a camera on a tripod, record a short video clip, import it into our app, and then you can live mask over the portion of the image that you want to move. It's really that simple. So we've taken a medium that was difficult to do, we've made it easy to do, and by doing that, we believe that it's poised to go mainstream. So I'm going to show you some cinemagraphs created by our community. I'm very lucky. We talk about having user-generated content. I have a community now of about 35,000 paid users and over probably 1 million unpaid users that have downloaded various versions of the app that are creating content that we can easily share with others to give them inspiration on what they can do with Cinemagraphs. So when Flixel 1.0 launched, the original objective was to create the Instagram of Cinemagraphs, so an iPhone app that you could easily create these with. Unfortunately, several other startups also launched Cinemagraph apps around the same time, some of them with much bigger funding and much bigger aspirations, Silicon Valley based, so they looked like pretty dark days for Flixel. But something miraculous happened in and around 2012, just when Phil was actually getting ready to lay off his co-founder. Flixel got a phone call from supermodel Tyra Banks, who had also seen Cinemagraphs and wanted to use them on Cycle 20 of America's Next Top Model. She talked to all the companies that were doing Cinemagraphs, and she picked Flixel. So if you remember Cycle 20, apparently a lot of people actually do watch America's Next Top Model, every episode where they were doing the shots of the models, they were Cinemagraphs done in Flixel on the iPad instead of still photos. So millions of people were introduced to this new visual medium. And one of the things that I did when I joined Flixel back in September 2014 is I asked the question, why are all the Cinemagraphs Flixel is promoting and featuring beauty-focused or fashion-focused, hair and dresses moving? I said, why can't Cinemagraphs have an application across every type of photography? So we started going back and looking at all the Cinemagraphs that have been uploaded to our site, and we just simply bucketed them into different categories of photography. And very quickly by doing that and creating these galleries, we started to see our community applying Cinemagraphs to every type of photography, to wedding photography, to travel, to landscape, black and white, city, you name it. They started to understand that Cinemagraphs could be used pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Some pretty amazing stuff done by a photographer in New Zealand. You know, a still photo is great, but there's something magical about a Cinemagraph. And studies are showing that the engagement, the dwell time on a Cinemagraph versus a still is remarkably better. So some people say, well, aren't you just creating GIFs? Well, our friends at Ogilvy put this infographic together, which really kind of helps explain the difference. While the first generation of Cinemagraphs were done in GIF, the GIF is really just a file format, and it actually predates the internet. It's not well suited for Cinemagraphs. It's almost become its own language for communicating emotion. If I'm feeling excited, I send a GIF via Facebook Messenger of Jim Carrey eyes bugging out of my head. But Cinemagraphs are more aesthetic. They're beautiful, and they're rooted in video, in very high-quality video. The only thing that Social Ogilvy got wrong is that it doesn't take hours to create anymore, because we fixed that particular problem. So let me talk about a key member of the Flixel community. The fellow here in the photo, his name is Alexandra Miguel. And Alexandra is a photographer, videographer. These are some of his Cinemagraphs. Filmmaker, musician. He calls himself a multimedia artist. But if you were to talk to him and ask him what he is today, he would tell you that he is a Flixel artist, because he discovered Cinemagraph Pro about 18 months ago, and now he has become the most prolific creator of Cinemagraphs in the world, and his work is available as stock on Shutterstock. So we're seeing the evolution of Cinemagraphs into stock images that you can easily use for marketing and other types of campaigns. And he's done Cinemagraphs at Le Mans, he's done them in the Volvo Ocean Race, and his collection is quite remarkable. So let's show a short video here, and I'll introduce you to Alessandra.
My name is Alexandre Miguel. I'm a Portuguese multimedia artist. My first camera, I think it was a Kodak with that flash, cube flash. The art, it's part of me, it's part of who I am. When I first saw Cinemagraphs, I was so excited. It was like opening a window inside of photography. When I go out, I'm catching 3, 4, 5, a lot more cinemagraphs in one moment. Seeing your work come to life just minutes after the shooting, it's like magic. Staying motivated, it's not difficult, really. I'm not a big fan of spending too much time editing, but if we have the tools to do it in a faster way without losing that quality, then it's perfect, because you can be creative just like that.
So he's done over 2,000 cinemagraphs. I think he produces on average between 5 and 10 a day. And that is just something not even imaginable using traditional photo editing or video editing tools. All right, so while it's really great to be evangelizing a new art forms need to evolve into commercial applications for them to succeed. So let me give you some examples of how cinemagraphs are being put to work in various marketing and advertising applications. A cinemagraph can essentially work anywhere you use a video. So they can work in email, you can do live activations, we do cinemagraph photo booths. We just did 3 of them recently at South by Southwest. They work phenomenally well on social media because the social media platforms now autoplay video. And that was a key moment for Flixel when Facebook started doing that. You're seeing tremendous uptake of cinemagraphs on Instagram. Instagrammers that use cinemagraphs enjoy far better engagement than just with still photographs. Digital displays. I was in New York at our office there last week, and the giant video wall on the side of the Marriott Marquis, one of the biggest in the world, was showing a cinemagraph for Jungle Book. Banner ads. These are becoming an ad format. You're going to see cinemagraph ads on all the major ad networks in 2016, and we've even produced, for a major US network, the first ever Cinemagraph television commercial. The 2 examples on the screen there, they're done by our group that we call Flixel Studios, and this is a group that works with top brands on helping them develop Cinemagraph campaigns for different types of programs. So let's start with email. If you're a Netflix subscriber, you may remember seeing this. It was a cinemagraph delivered via email to 50 million people to promote season 3 of House of Cards, and they've done this for their other shows. And we kind of laughed when we saw this particular cinemagraph because in our app, they are a Cinemagraph Pro user, and this probably took whoever created this at Netflix all of about 1 minute to do in our software. We've worked on all 3 seasons of Bates Motel with the folks at A&E. You know, people say cinemagraphs are creepy. Well, what's better creepy than to do cinemagraphs for a TV show based on Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho? And for season 3, we actually recreated the original Psycho photographs that were done for the movie as cinemagraphs. And A&E shares these both as stills and as cinemagraphs. They do their sort of informal A/B testing, and the cinemagraphs get unbelievable engagement. Here's an example. So essentially it's the cinemagraph and there's the still version. It's super creepy, but it's a fantastic application of a cinemagraph, and Bates Motel fans just eat this stuff up. This was cool. We discovered about 2 months ago that Kevin Hart, his official photographer who travels with Kevin Hart, is a huge Flixel fan and had been creating Flixels of Kevin Hart while they tour around the world. So this is obviously shot from looking out at the audience, and we've actually written about this photographer and his adventures with Kevin Hart. And Kevin has 25 million friends on Instagram and growing fast. He's the hardest working comedian in the world right now, and we're very happy to have him part of our community. Outdoor display. In September of 2014, it was the 60th anniversary of the night that photograph was taken over the grate on Madison Avenue for the film Some Like It Hot, an iconic photograph. So we actually recreated it into probably one of the greatest cinemagraphs ever done. In this case, this was not done purely in our app because we had to start from a photograph. So we actually hired a Marilyn Monroe look-alike, took her into the studio. The estate of Marilyn Monroe gave us a replica of the dress, and we shot some video of the double, and then frame by frame, we meticulously put this together. And one of Marilyn Monroe's licensees, Sexy Hair, projected this particular cinemagraph in 6K onto the side of 7 skyscrapers on that particular evening in New York City. And it was a big social media campaign. So if you saw it, you took a picture, you tagged it, and they would send you some Sexy Hair prizes. The image on the right of the hot new Mercedes Roadster is actually a cinemagraph we also created, and it was the first sponsored Instagram cinemagraph done in Canada. It was done for Mercedes-Benz Canada, but it got such incredible response. A lot of people kind of got a little up in arms when they started seeing ads in their Instagram feed. And one of the things where a cinemagraph can help sort of moot that is people actually like cinemagraphs, and they like them even as ads. So when Mercedes saw this, they picked up the cinemagraph from the Canadian group, and they ran it all over the world, and it had a tremendously positive response. We've also done work with a number of award shows. So we were hired by the Emmy Awards to do a combination of sort of live activation and a social media campaign. So we were backstage at the Emmys. So as John Hamm walked off stage with his prize, he was ushered into a Flixel photo booth. We were working with one of Hollywood's top photographers. A still was captured, and it was transformed into a cinemagraph in real time, and then shared by the Emmys across all their social media channels on Vine, on Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook. Had millions and millions of impressions. It was one of their most successful campaigns ever. Other live activations. We partnered with Adobe at Adobe Max, which is their big global creator conference. This was a cinemagraph photo booth, so we were doing these with attendees live at the event. And then again, we partnered with A&E at their upfronts, which is the big event that they host to launch new seasons and new shows. And we created a cinemagraph photo booth with actually a set from the Psycho Motel. All right, so we talked about cinemagraphs on the small screen. This is the first cinemagraph to run on the big screen. In mid-last year, we got a call from Turner Networks. They had seen cinemagraphs, and they'd seen our work, and they were wondering, could you integrate a cinemagraph directly into a network show? And in particular, the show is called Billy on the Street that airs on True TV. Billy is this crazy stand-up comic who runs around New York with a dollar bill in one hand, a mic in the other, and usually a celebrity in tow. The one episode I saw, it was Will Ferrell. He runs up to the person, like a stranger, and says, with Will Ferrell looking over his shoulder, who was the star of Elf? And most people would get it wrong. And he would say some obscenity at them and keep moving. So what Turner wanted to do was create a new ad format that they could sell to sponsors that was more directly linked with the show itself. So we created this through our Flixel Studios team. It was shot on a simple DSLR over the course of a couple hours in Times Square one night. It was actually edited in Times Square on a Mac so that the client could see what they were going to get. They couldn't believe how quickly it was done and how little it actually cost. So this one has sound, so it's kind of a unique cinemagraph. And the way this worked is, as Billy on the Street was kind of going to a commercial, this played before the actual commercial for, you're going to see who the sponsor is. So it's just it was a 15-second loop, but we did this in a way that True TV, you can take the sound down. We did this in a way that True TV can reuse this. It's very easy for us to take out the Pizza Hut branding and put in whoever else decides to buy the spot for future shows. And we created 2 of these. So this was actually the very first ever Cinemagraph TV commercial, and it got a lot of attention. It was featured in Fast Company, Adweek. It was exciting to see the interest in this. So the role of cinemagraphs on social really has been key. They have been endorsed and supported by all the major social networks. And we have partnerships with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram. And we are working with them on the creative side as well as on the technical side to better support cinemagraphs. And I think you're going to see some really interesting developments in the not too distant future. A key kind of event for us happened just a couple of weeks ago. It was at Facebook F8, which is their global developer conference. Flixel was one of only 6 companies that Facebook announced a partnership with, and it related to what's called the Expression Kit. I don't know if you've noticed, but on Facebook, you can now have a video as your profile rather than just a still photo. Facebook asked us to integrate directly with the Facebook app so that you can now create and use a Cinemagraph. So the current version of our iOS app, and these are silly and these are fun, the current version of the iOS app has this feature where you can export directly to that feature inside of Facebook. And they've only made that available to 6 companies, and the others are much larger. So we were excited to be the only startup that decided to do this with. So let me just give you some data, because marketers love data, advertisers like to understand data. You know, click-through rates have been declining rapidly. Most media is simply not driving the kind of engagement that people want to see. Studies are showing that a Cinemagraph can generate up to a 500% lift in engagement between a still. Very impactful. Dwell times, and there's Flixel investor Tyra Banks. This number is actually low. We've seen some new studies that show the time spent looking at a Cinemagraph is up to 9 times longer than a still. You know, we live in the Tinder generation where people are swiping content at the speed of light. A Cinemagraph gets them to slow down and actually engage with your media. And there are studies now that are supporting our thesis about the significant role that Cinemagraphs can play. This is a study done by Instagram and Facebook with the Mercedes campaign that I showed you, and these are significant big lifts in numbers over some of their other creative. So I'm going to end by showing you a short video clip. Our friends at CTV National News visited Flixel just before Christmas to do a story on us. And what I think is kind of fun, and why I'm showing you this, is the reporter is a bit of a photography hobbyist, and we challenged him to essentially come to Flixel and make his own Cinemagraph. So let's see how he did.
We leave you tonight with a made-in-Canada technology that's giving new meaning to the term motion pictures. It's software that creates a curious hybrid of still and moving pictures called a Cinemagraph. It's basically a brand new medium with huge potential for marketers and artists. And as CTV's John Venavali-Rao reports, using it is a snap.
Okay. For fun, we enlisted the help of Cassandra here, posing with balloons. As Mark Pavlidis showed us an easy way to create a new kind of digital art.
And I'm just taking a video. Is that
just like that. So
first, we shot video of Cassandra in front of a brick wall.
So you'd want to frame it just like you would taking a photograph.
Then we transferred the video into software developed by Toronto-based Flixel, letting us freeze a single frame, but highlight the balloons, allowing only them to move.
You're effectively cutting a hole in that still, and you're revealing that area of motion.
The result, a so-called living photo. Notice the balloons swaying while the rest of the picture is a still shot.
This is something that isn't a photo, it isn't a video, it's a new way to tell a story.
From this striking image of a woman frozen while the cars zoom by, to a statue-like dog surrounded by moving grass. Also known as Cinemagraphs, they have a way of drawing you in.
So it's rooted in a beautiful imagery like photography, but it really has that element of motion that captures the attention.
It was this one, created by artists in 2011, that first captured the attention of Philippe Leblanc. At the time, Cinemagraphs were tough to make.
I thought there has to be other people who want to create these, and it had the potential to become a new medium. And so from there was the birth of Flixel.
Along with a third team member, Mark Homza, they developed software so anyone could do it, even using an iPad or an iPhone.
You can make this on an iPhone, yeah.
And companies like Mercedes are now using Flixel's Pro software for commercial work.
It's used a lot on social network ads. If you're a Netflix subscriber, you would have gotten a House of Cards email that showed a Cinemagraph.
We've been doing great. We've just hit over 1 million downloads, over 30,000 paying customers.
Oh, that's kind of what I want.
And the Flixel team, confident you'll see more of this new art form in the new year. John Venavali-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Neat. That's our newscast for this Sunday. Thank you for sharing your weekend with.
So I hope I've given you some sense of the potential for Cinemagraphs. We're very excited about this medium. We consider ourselves the ambassadors of the medium, and I hope you'll explore and think about how you could put this to work either in your businesses or as something that you do, because they really are a whole lot of fun to make. Thank you very much.